Life sometimes brings unexpected surprises, especially when it comes to love in mature age. This is exactly what happened to an American businessman who, on the threshold of his 60th birthday, fell in love with a woman half his age. However, this relationship, built on material calculations, ended tragically. On a hot evening of August 8, 2017, around 6 o'clock, an unusual event occurred in the picturesque township of Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Colleagues became concerned about the fate of 64-year-old sales representative Michael McNew, who unexpectedly stopped communicating that day. This was extremely uncharacteristic for a person who had earned a reputation as one of the most responsible employees of the pharmaceutical company. That's why his female co-workers decided to check on him right after work. Arriving at McNew's house, the women first looked into the garage, where they saw their colleague's parked car. Everything looked untouched, as if the owner should be home. Approaching the front door, they tried ringing the doorbell but received no answer. Knocking on the door also remained unanswered, and silence prevailed in the house. Finding the door unlocked, the worried colleagues ventured inside. Inside the house, they called out for Michael again, but in vain. When the women reached the living room, they saw their colleague's silhouette in an armchair, turned away from them. For a moment, they felt relief, perhaps he was just sleeping. However, this feeling proved deceptive. As they approached, they saw a horrific sight. Mike's body was covered in blood, and his head was mutilated. Their colleague was dead. Horror-stricken, the women immediately dialed 911. One of them was so shocked she couldn't even provide the address, so another colleague took the phone. She clearly described the situation to the dispatcher, who asked them to check for signs of life in the victim. Upon closer approach, the woman confirmed the absence of breathing and pulse. It was too late for first aid. Emergency services and police were immediately dispatched to the scene of the tragedy. Michael McNew, born in Pennsylvania in 1953, had always dreamed of having a large, close-knit family. He later moved to Williamsport, Maryland, where he spent his childhood in a warm family environment with caring parents. Mike's life path initially followed a traditional course. After high school, he enrolled in college and soon married his high school sweetheart, with whom he had shared several years of genuine feelings. She reciprocated his proposal, and they created a typical middle-class family, settling in a cozy house near the coast. Beyond family life, Michael was ambitious in his professional sphere. He first earned a reputation as a successful insurance agent in the city, and later transitioned to the pharmaceutical industry, where his career soared. As a pharmaceutical representative, he built his own business, which allowed him to provide his family with a comfortable life free from financial worries. However, marital happiness proved short-lived. 3 to 4 years after their children were born, the couple's feelings faded, leading to divorce. Despite the separation, the former spouses maintained a civilized relationship for the sake of joint custody of their children. The family relationship after the divorce turned out remarkably harmonious. The daughters frequently visited their father, and the former spouses maintained friendly communication. The daughters were particularly impressed that even during and after the divorce, they never witnessed any parental arguments. The couple maintained mutual respect and a calm attitude toward each other even after their marriage ended in the early 2000s. Seeking to start a new chapter in life, Michael settled in the quiet township of Upper Macungie, in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, a cozy town with only 8,000 residents. Here, he planned to continue his business until retirement. Bachelor life proved to be fulfilling. Michael purchased a luxurious house on the riverbank, became passionate about jet skiing, and unexpectedly discovered a passion for collecting artwork. Although his collection didn't contain world masterpieces, it was quite interesting and became a source of particular pride for him. Michael enjoyed his solitude for a long time until 2012 when fate brought him together with 28-year-old single mother Jennifer Morrissey. Their relationship developed rapidly and passionately. Soon, the couple embarked on a romantic journey to the Caribbean islands, where Michael brought 2 jet skis and quad bikes for shared entertainment. The 60-year-old man, who was essentially preparing for retirement, fell in love like a young man, losing his head over feelings for the young woman. His close ones were amazed by his radical changes. For the first time in his life, he even got a tattoo in honor of Jennifer. In 2015, after 3 years of relationship, Michael invited his beloved to move into his house. Jenny agreed, and the businessmen created all the conditions for comfortable living. Her child received their own room, and the woman herself was fully provided for. However, the idyllic life came to an end on August 8, 2017, when Michael was found dead in his house. By that time, their relationship had lasted for 5 years, and the couple was preparing for their wedding. When colleagues discovered Mike's body, they initially suspected a heart attack. The arriving paramedics found him in an armchair, his head thrown back against the backrest, hands resting on his knees, as if the man had simply fallen asleep. However, a more detailed examination revealed horrific details. There was a pool of blood under the chair, blood streaks on his face and chest, and a gunshot wound between his eyes. A question arose: was this murder or suicide? Forensic experts quickly dismissed the suicide theory. If Michael had shot himself, the weapon would have remained nearby, on the floor or on his knees. However, the gun was nowhere to be found. Obviously, someone else was present at the moment of death, the real killer. Expanding the search area, experts found a spent .38 caliber shell casing about 10 meters from the victim. Notably, there were no signs of struggle in the house. It seemed Michael didn't resist his attacker. A watch mark was found on the deceased's wrist, a lighter strip on the tanned skin, but the accessory itself was missing, along with other valuables. The clothing pockets were turned inside out, indicating a thorough search. A laptop, personal mobile phone, and other valuables disappeared from the office on the first floor. At first glance, everything pointed to a robbery where the owner unexpectedly returned home and became an unwanted witness. The bedroom search added new details to the crime scene. It was discovered that Michael legally owned 2 pistols, but only one was found at the crime scene. Only an empty holster remained from the .38 caliber Smith & Wesson. Further forensic examination confirmed, the man was killed with his own weapon, which he kept for self-defense. This circumstance led investigators to an important conclusion: the perpetrator must have known the location of the weapon. There were no signs of struggle in the house or characteristic injuries on the victim's body. Everything was neat and in its place. Obviously, the killer was well acquainted with the victim, knew the house layout, the location of weapons and valuables, and how to leave the crime scene unnoticed. Detectives began a thorough investigation of the deceased businessman's immediate circle, involving all available specialists. The robbery theory quickly lost credibility. Despite the disappearance of the mobile phone, laptop, and watch, the perpetrator ignored the most valuable items that were literally in plain sight, particularly the art collection, which included truly expensive pieces. A disturbing picture emerged. It seemed the 64-year-old pharmaceutical representative had made a deadly enemy. It was notable that each artwork in the collection had separate lighting, making them visible even in darkness. The fact that such obvious valuables remained untouched only confirmed police suspicions. The perpetrator came not to rob, but to kill. The stolen items were merely an attempt to disguise the true motive as robbery. Special attention was drawn to the disappearance of electronic devices. This was likely not coincidental. They might have contained important information capable of exposing the criminal. The absence of forced entry marks on doors and windows indicated that the killer either had keys or was voluntarily let into the house by the victim. Investigation of Mike's final years showed no apparent enemies or ill-wishers. He had been living with 33-year-old Jennifer Morrissey, whom neighbors knew as his fiancée. However, after the murder, the woman disappeared without a trace, raising suspicions. Neighbors characterized Jenny as a reserved person, reluctant to discuss her past. The only known detail was her complicated relationship with her mother. Jenny had spoken about childhood abuse from her mother's lovers, accusing 2 specific men. Jenny's tragic history unfolded through her stories about the past. She confessed that in her teenage years, she had suffered abuse from her mother's lovers, who refused to believe her. These traumatic events forced the girl to drop out of school and run away from home, leaving behind a period of deep depression and despair. To survive independently, Jenny found work as a motorcycle mechanic, for which she had a special passion. After acquiring her own sports motorcycle, she would boast on social media about her nighttime rides at extreme speeds. Her extreme nature was reflected in her appearance. Numerous tattoos adorned her body, inscriptions on her chest, a revolver image on her bicep, and a smiling skull on her arm. Bright and attractive, she became a mother at 20, but the child's biological father quickly disappeared from their lives. Since then, the young mother worked tirelessly for her child's future. Fate brought her together with Michael in 2012 at a nightclub in Bristol, Pennsylvania, where she worked as a dancer. 59-year-old Michael was a regular patron of the establishment. After a chance conversation, he asked her on a date, which Jennifer agreed to on the condition that he would pay her electricity bill of $1,200. Thus began their life together: dinners at expensive restaurants, social entertainment, costly gifts, jewelry, a motorcycle, a car, and travels. Jennifer began calling him her daddy, and Michael enjoyed taking care of the young beauty. Given Jennifer's difficult past, Michael became her chance at a better life. They were united by a sense of certain alienation from the world, and in the elderly businessman, she found not only material support but also understanding and respect, which had been so lacking in her life. In 2015, their relationship moved to a new level. They began living together. Initially, everything seemed perfect, but problems began to emerge over time. Neighbors recalled a serious conflict several months before the tragedy. After a loud scandal, the couple supposedly separated, though they continued living under the same roof, but their relationship noticeably deteriorated. Jennifer's sudden disappearance after the murder looked suspicious. This was all the information that could be gathered from the neighbors. Despite being declared wanted, the woman couldn't be found anywhere, so detectives turned to the deceased's children. Mike's children were still trying to process the shocking news of their father's death. Upon learning of the tragedy, they immediately gathered together. Patrick came from Pittsburgh, and his sister with their mother came from Maryland to visit their father's house together. During the investigation, close ones openly shared their thoughts about the deceased's relationship with the stripper. In their eyes, Jennifer appeared as a person with a rather difficult character, rude and mercenary, which is why no one believed in the longevity of this relationship. The businessman's relatives and friends repeatedly tried to warn him, sensing potential danger from this woman. Family tension reached its peak in late 2016 when the deceased's son, Patrick, was getting married. The situation turned dramatic. The son didn't want to see Jennifer at his wedding, and the father refused to come without his companion. Thus, the family celebration took place without the groom's father. However, even this unfortunate incident didn't make the man reconsider his choice. Mike's dedication to his young girlfriend was also evident in his financial decisions. He named her the beneficiary of 2 life insurance policies, totaling $500,000. By that time, her substance addiction and probable infidelity were widely known. Jennifer managed to destroy the relationship between father and son, which many viewed as a deliberate attempt to gain sole control over the wealthy man's finances. 2017 brought new complications to their relationship. Jennifer's behavior became even more unpredictable. She often disappeared without explanation and returned late at night, showing complete indifference to her partner's feelings. Her substance dependency intensified, leading to several arrests, twice for drugs and once for a traffic accident when she hit a pedestrian. Despite all this, Michael continued to support his beloved financially. He paid all fines, court costs, and made monthly payments for 2 court cases against her, spending about $4,000. According to his children's testimony, shortly before the tragedy, their father shared his intention to end his relationship with Jennifer and cancel the planned wedding. For her, this meant losing everything: the luxurious lifestyle, financial support, and having to deal with legal problems on her own. Patrick and Katie, the deceased's children, were convinced that the fear of losing financial security became the motive for murder. They believed that Jennifer couldn't control herself when faced with the prospect of losing everything. The autopsy results established that Mike's death occurred 24 to 48 hours before his colleagues discovered the body. The fatal shot to the face from close range proved deadly. The bullet shattered the facial bone at point-blank range, splitting it in half. One of the bone fragments entered the brain, causing instant death. Law enforcement focused their efforts on finding Jennifer Morrissey as the main suspect. Considering she was on probation due to the accident, police expected her mandatory appearance at the department to register with the inspector. Events took an unexpected turn on August 10, 4 days after Mike's death. Jennifer appeared at the police station for scheduled registration and payment of court costs. During her visit, she casually mentioned to the duty officer that she had learned about her lover's murder from the news and was shocked by it. This statement immediately caught investigators' attention, as information about the crime appeared in the media almost immediately after the murder. Why, then, had Jennifer remained silent for 4 whole days? Detectives decided to proceed cautiously and invited her for a conversation the next day, without revealing their suspicions. They presented it as a routine inquiry about Mike. Simultaneously, they filed a request for permission to check her communications. However, Jennifer, apparently sensing danger, didn't show up for the meeting and disappeared again for several days. From the experienced investigator's perspective, such behavior was typical of criminals trying to buy time to create an alibi or hide. However, Jennifer's special situation due to her probation didn't allow her to hide for long. She was required to check in regularly with the police. Missing these visits would create additional legal problems for her. However, at that point, the police didn't have enough evidence to arrest her. Meanwhile, the investigation received important testimony from a close friend of the deceased. According to him, shortly before his death, Michael McNew had called him expressing serious fears for his life. The cause of his fear was Jennifer's new companion, known by the pseudonym Ruthless. This man turned out to be Charles Cola, a notable figure in the criminal world with numerous convictions, especially for drug distribution. Notably, Cola had been released from prison just days before Mike's death. Jennifer immediately moved in with him, although some of her belongings still remained in the businessman's house. She periodically visited to collect her possessions, and Michael had agreed to move her things to storage to avoid further encounters. According to his friend, Michael had no intention of competing with the criminal authority and decided to simply end his relationship with Jennifer. By that time, she and Charles had already publicly announced their engagement on social media. Investigators were particularly interested in the contrast between the wealthy businessman and the criminal element who claimed his place. For law enforcement, it became obvious that Jennifer, who grew up in a violent environment, felt drawn to the criminal world, embodied by the aggressive and influential Charles Cola. This line of investigation seemed extremely promising. The investigation took a new direction. Another serious suspect emerged, capable of cold-blooded murder of an elderly person. Investigators suspected that Charles might have accompanied Jennifer to Mike's house, where the murder occurred during a conflict or attempted robbery. The situation changed on August 25, 2017, when Jennifer missed her mandatory meeting with the inspector. This violation provided grounds for her arrest. Police detained her at her workplace in the motorcycle repair shop, allowing investigators to begin a detailed examination of her possible involvement in the pharmaceutical supplier's murder. Important information came from Jennifer's cellmate, who cooperated with police. According to her, the suspect behaved suspiciously and confessed to intentionally killing Mike. However, during official questioning, Jennifer retracted her statements and sought legal help, complicating the process of obtaining a confession. Analysis of electronic correspondence between Jennifer and Michael revealed disturbing details. The final dialogue reflected the victim's fear. Michael warned that anyone entering his house would face consequences. This appeared to be a desperate attempt at self-defense, after which communication ceased. Jennifer's phone geolocation confirmed her presence near the victim's house at the time of their last communication at 9:45 p.m. After this, she traveled approximately 20 kilometers south to Charles's trailer, arriving around 11 p.m. The movement of the victim's phone proved mysterious. Until 1 a.m. it remained in the house, then moved to the river, where it stopped working around 1:30 a.m. This raised the question, who moved the phone if Jennifer had already left? Technical analysis established that Jennifer's phone connected to Mike's home Wi-Fi network at 9:45 p.m. on August 6, 2017, the probable time of murder. Given the router's limited range, the suspect must have been in close proximity. Further investigation revealed a second phone in Jennifer's possession, which belonged to Michael and was password protected. Risking data loss through incorrect unlocking, investigators found Jennifer's password list on the victim's computer. This allowed access to the device. Although most of the correspondence was deleted, experts managed to recover important evidence of communication between the victim and suspect before the crime. The recovered correspondence revealed a sharp conflict between the drama's participants. Michael threatened to contact the Bureau of Investigations, EBR, to secure a life sentence for Charles. Although Charles himself appeared rather calm about these threats, Jennifer reacted extremely aggressively. In response, Michael proposed a compromise. He was willing to forego reporting to the EBR if Jennifer would return to him and leave the criminal. Mike's final message before his death was, "I love you," which remained unanswered. Analysis of Jennifer's social media revealed suspicious activity. The day after Mike's death, she began spreading contradictory information about the event. She presented different versions to different people, telling some about an attack on the businessmen, others about suicide, and to some claiming she knew nothing due to their long-ago divorce. This obvious attempt at disinformation prompted investigators to take more active measures. The turning point came during Charles's interrogation. He unexpectedly confessed that Jennifer committed the murder. According to him, that evening she returned and told him that after an unpleasant conversation, Michael had confronted her with a gun. During a struggle for the pistol, an accidental shot was fired, which proved fatal. A frightened Jennifer fled the scene. Later, she asked to be driven back to Mike's house, allegedly to check on his condition or provide assistance. Charles, not wanting to be involved in the crime, asked his neighbor Jerry to drive Jennifer. Jerry, who lived nearby in a trailer with his mother, agreed to cooperate with the investigation and described the events of that night in detail. According to Jerry, when he brought Jennifer to the house, the scene he witnessed contradicted her version about an accidental shot during a struggle. The crime scene more closely resembled an execution. The man was simply sitting in his chair. Jennifer didn't even attempt to check his condition. Instead, she focused on collecting evidence, removing the watch from the victim's wrist, taking the laptop, and throwing Mike's mobile phone into the river. Afterward, Jerry drove her back to Charles's trailer. The investigation obtained crucial physical evidence. Jennifer's DNA was found on the victim's pockets, which she had searched. Regarding his non-involvement, Charles provided a solid alibi. Shortly before the murder, he had been in an accident and sustained serious injuries that confined him to a wheelchair. In this condition, he was physically unable to participate in the crime. Charles emphasized that due to his probation conditions, he couldn't risk any involvement in the crime. His testimony appeared convincing, and verification confirmed that he was indeed recovering from a serious accident during that period. On September 29, 2017, Jennifer Morrissey was formally charged with first-degree murder, robbery, and tampering with evidence. The trial was scheduled for January 24, 2019. The prosecution presented the crime motives as a combination of several factors: anger over the termination of her lifestyle funding, resentment over the relationship's end, and fear of the FBI threat. An additional motive was the potential benefit of an insurance payout of approximately $500,000. The prosecution relied on substantial evidence, extensive correspondence, phone records, DNA traces, and witness testimonies. The crucial testimony came from Jerry, her new boyfriend's friend, who confirmed her return to the crime scene to destroy evidence. For his cooperation with the investigation, Jerry avoided charges. Similarly, Charles, despite concealing the crime and destroying the murder weapon, avoided prosecution thanks to his testimony against Jennifer. At trial, the defense attempted to present the defendant as a person not prone to violence and aggression. Jennifer herself presented her version of events. She claimed she came to collect her belongings, but Michael confronted her with a weapon, threatened her, and during the struggle for the gun, an accidental shot occurred. She insisted on self-defense. However, her version didn't match the evidence. The body was found in a chair, not near the threshold. Forensic examination established that the shot was fired from approximately 3 centimeters away, directly between the victim's eyes, indicating a deliberate execution-style killing with no signs of struggle. On February 1, 2019, the jury delivered their verdict. Jennifer was found guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Throughout the entire process, she showed no signs of remorse. Mike's son was the most severely affected by this tragedy. He repeatedly expressed his hatred toward Jennifer for depriving his child of a grandfather and himself of a father. Particularly painful for him was the fact that his relationship with his father had significantly deteriorated because of this woman, and now the possibility of reconciliation was forever lost. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. Until next time, friends.